We know that economic collapse and even national collapse are the fate of an autocracy. However, many people may have noticed that the economies of many autocracies had a period of rapid growth before collapsing. What was the reason for their economic growth? Why did they eventually collapse? I will answer these two questions using Mexico as an example. At first, the Mexican government was very loose in its control of society. Most industries did not have state-owned enterprises, only private enterprises. It was in this loose environment that Mexico's economy achieved rapid growth. However, it didn't take long for the Mexican government to tighten its control over society, and it became tighter and tighter over time. Most industries were monopolized by state-owned enterprises. Only industries such as catering and retail were open to private enterprises. Why did the Mexican government tighten its control over society? It is determined by the characteristics of autocracy. Loose social control means that the government hands over most of the resources to the society, and the government itself controls only a small part of the resources. When most of the resources enter the society, the economy will indeed grow rapidly, but it will inevitably lead to some people having more resources than the government. Because resource and power can be transformed into each other, these people will be more powerful than the government. When they are more powerful than the government, they will definitely challenge the ruler and will demand political reforms from the ruler. If the ruler does not agree, he will be overthrown. In order to maintain rule, the ruler must have more resources than anyone else, and it can only be achieved through resource monopoly. When resources are monopolized by the government, because the government's utilization of resources is very low, these resources will not only not generate profits, but will produce huge losses. This is the case with state-owned enterprises in Mexico. Since state-owned enterprises were the main source of government revenue at that time, the Mexican government's revenue fell sharply. In this situation, the right thing to do was to sell state-owned enterprises to reduce the burden. However, the government continued to use fiscal revenue to subsidize state-owned enterprises. Why did the ruler dig his own grave? If we stand in the position of the ruler, it is easy for us to understand that he couldn't give up SOEs if he wanted to maintain his rule. However, the Mexican government had no money to subsidize SOEs due to a sharp drop in revenue. In order to get enough money, the government had to take three measures: raising taxes on private enterprises, issuing bonds, and overissuing currency. The nature of these three measures was the excessive exploitation of society, and the consequence of excessive exploitation was the collapse of the country.